Hi, everybody. It's October 5th, 2023, and this is the weekly Backdrop Development Meeting. We get together every week to talk about development priorities for Backdrop CMS. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet, calling in from Oakland, California, and I am the technical lead on the Backdrop project. I'm joined here by a few others, and we'll go through some introductions. We'll start with Greg, and then we'll go to Tim.
Well, hi, my name is Greg. I'm joining from Greece, Central Greece, but usually in Melbourne. Just been away for a couple of months or so with life and work and things got happening, but I'm getting back on things now. And I've kept up with, I'm up to speed with what has been merged recently, but still haven't gone through the issue queue, not the many issues, but yeah, eager to do that.
Just go through it, the whole thing.
I'm going through it.
Just settle down at night with your hot chocolate and the Backdrop core issue queue.
Other people binge watch Netflix. I'll just do the core issue queue.
Issue queue and chill. All right, thanks, Greg. Tim, and then Joseph.
Yeah, hello, my name is Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, and nothing special to report this week. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Joseph, and then Robert.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm a developer from Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm working on kind of a whole bunch of things, although I don't know, a lot of weird esoteric stuff, really.
Great, I guess. Thanks, Joseph. And we'll finish out with Robert.
Robert Line, bug folder on the internet in Altadena, California. And lately I've been trying to work on low-hanging fruit in the issue queue that hasn't actually spoiled.
That hasn't actually spoiled yet.
From age.
Yeah, that's better than saying working on the rotten fruit. Like working on the oldest issue. Okay, let's see here. Some just general news. Oh, good. Jen looks like she might be able to join us here. Jen, we just did the introductions. Do you want to say something as well?
Sure. Jen Lampton joining from Sacramento, California.
Great. Thanks, Jen. Great that you could make it. Let's see. So news. We had been shooting to make the 126.1 release this week. My objective had been to do it Monday or Tuesday, but kind of slipped off my radar, other work things. We're still planning on getting into it this week, though. Given scheduling and everything, we're going to shoot for tomorrow. So Irina mentioned in Zulip is our chat application. She was like, there's so much great stuff. Like maybe we should wait on the release, which I thought was an interesting perspective, considering her fix is the main one that we're trying to get out, which is the installer module doesn't work on Windows computers. So that was a regression in 126. And that one issue is basically the impetus for like, let's get out another release, because we don't like to have minor versions that include any kind of regressions in them. So other than that, I've been only touching on the issue queue here and there. I'm curious to hear if anybody else has surfaced or heard of any other 126 issues that like regressions that are in 126 that we might want to prioritize if we're getting out a regression oriented release tomorrow. All of the jQuery updates. Curious if anybody's had any kind of issues with those things. No? Great. I mean, I haven't seen any in the issue queue either, so that's great. Fantastic. I love a nice stable release. Let's see. So I was looking at the issue queue right before we started the meeting. There are apparently 31 RTBC issues. I will try to look through the ones that are actionable for the 126.1 release before tomorrow. So at least we can get in a lot of those things that are right on the cusp of being completed. Let's see, other issues that people have surfaced before the meeting started. We've got an issue over in Tugboat land in the backdrop ops queue that Tugboat demo sandboxes, when you create them from the backdrop CMS homepage, seemingly sometimes didn't work with the installer module. There's pull request number 6 over in the Tugboat demos repository. And this pull request from Greg just lines up the Tugboat demo sandboxes with the Tugboat pull request previews. So we have, when you file a pull request, you get an automatic sandbox. That configuration got updated a couple months ago, but the same changes haven't been made over on demo sandboxes, which live in a different repository. So this just lines them up to make it so that in theory, it should help with the updating, although we noted that it seems like the installer module is working fine on demo sandboxes currently, so this might not be a super high priority. I do see that this adds core as another directory that can be self-updated, so I'm not sure, I guess, I don't know how often this situation occurs, but this would allow Tugboat sandboxes to self-update core, but since we already kind of self-update, like we update the demo sandboxes and they're ephemeral, that doesn't give you a whole lot of a window to actually use that functionality. But still, it's going to be good to bring these things into alignment. Greg, you had also raised that we have some jQuery deprecated function follow-ups. I haven't seen those particular issues.
Just let me find the issue. I don't have it in front of me. It was either RGPiano or Robert, one of the two. I think RGPiano raised it. Just let me find the issue here. It's a follow-up, basically.
Okay. Robert, I think we did, in thinking of jQuery things, we did get in your contextual link overlap thing, right? So that'll be in 126.1. Yeah.
Yeah, so there is an issue, but no pull request yet. So the issue is 6248 by RGPiano. And he mentions a few deprecated jQuery methods that we will need to fix.
Let's see. Find.
He had a PS there, a note that there was a jQuery time entry plugin that is being used by Dite, and that's outdated, but I split that into a separate issue.
Oh, thank you. Interesting. I wonder. That's funny. I thought that I'm going to look this up real quick. jQuery deprecated functions. Maybe I'll just look up bind in particular, because I didn't think bind was deprecated. Oh, sure enough, as a jQuery 3, bind has been deprecated. Okay, great. Okay, cool. I thought that we got all of those, but looks like there's a bit more. I wonder if we can ping Indigo Zella on this. I hate to actually ask her to do something, but I don't know. she did all the other replacements, so maybe it's something that would.
Yeah, maybe they just get, these are the ones that are deprecated but not problematic until we switch to 4 or something. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that that was a lot of the other ones too, that they actually, oh, that's right, that, well, we did kind of both. We removed the uses that were actually gone from jQuery 3. We fixed those first, and then we merged the jQuery 3 library, and then we did make one pass already of removing deprecated usages, but looks like we didn't get quite all of them. Okay.
Are we between issues?
Yeah, we're definitely doing issues.
I want to just quickly ask. So I was thinking when we were talking about the stability of the last release to see how many people were using it already. And this is interesting. First of all, this is just our release statistics. And I find it very interesting that 700 sites are already using 1.26. That's almost as many as on 1.25, which I don't know, surprised me a bit that it was that many that fast.
Mhm.
But I also wanted to raise the question, which also part of the reason I looked was because I haven't upgraded all of my sites yet. And I wanted to see how fast other people were doing it. But I noticed this, that according to this, on September 9th, we had 70 sites using that already.
Mm.
Is that possible? I mean, that could have, there was a pre-release, but I don't, like, does this make any sense?
Yeah, I think what this actually reflects is that the statistics are weekly. And so that's starting September 9th, the week of September 9th. So September
Okay.
15th was the last day. And so apparently
Okay.
70 sites updated before the day was even over. I think that's what
Okay.
that means.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay,
because-
anyways, I
yeah.
just thought it'd be interesting to show that quick and answer that question.
Yeah, but that's
Since you
great.
are in the
Oh, go
since
ahead.
you are in the usage page, I was going through the pull requests that got merged, and I saw that we added telemetry for CK editor, and when we add telemetry in core, we need to also update the backdrop cms.org side respectively to gather and display it, and that wasn't done. So I've done it yesterday.
Oh,
And now we have 155 sites. So if you go to Backdrop CMS, if you type Backdrop CMS and then telemetry, you should come up.
okay, up here, /telemetry.
No, it's /project/backdrop/telemetry. But if you Google for it, it should be up the first. But
Yeah, you can also get to it from the project page there. So if you click backdrop project page, then there's a
yeah.
tab there for
telemetry.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
cool.
so
Yep. So there you go. And
Yeah.
it's surprising that maybe it's just because I enabled it the other day, but there's only 156 that are reporting, whereas if you look at the others, they're in the 360 something. The other stats, I mean. But yeah, we'll get there. I wouldn't expect anyone to be using 5. Maybe those that are testing the contrib module.
I think that the contrib module, that's the thing, is that the contrib module needs to start reporting this information too. And I don't think the contrib module even does report the version number yet. I think there's a pull request for that to make it so that if you have installed 5, then it will start reporting that information. So,
No, I
but
think that
This also,
the code that went into core also accounts for version 5.
I don't believe it
I
does.
don't think it does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the CK Editor 4 module, I think, self-reports and says, hey, this site is running CK Editor 4. And what we did is we made CK Editor in core module report on this CK Editor version. That's the key. And then CK Editor 5 module also reports on the same key. And so both modules are you need both of them in order to combine, like, they combine once the data gets to backdropcms.org. So the data is coming from 2 different modules, but when they get to backdropcms.org, they get aggregated.
right. That's also would only include sites that are on the latest version of Backdrop and have the telemetry module installed.
Yep, and that's why the number is so low compared to other things.
Yeah,
Not
please.
every site has telemetry module turned on. Just non sequitur. Telemetry module not being on by default still really bothers me. Like, it's really too bad that we have this amazing resource for collecting information, and we're not going to turn it on in the 126 cycle. But I don't know, maybe for 127 we can finally figure out a way to word that during the installation process to get telemetry module turned on by default. I got a new Mac, and every time I get a new computer, I pay attention to the request for additional information. I always get to this screen of like, hey, do you want to share usage information with the manufacturer? And there's usually a lot of information about that. And one of the things that struck me just generally, though, was how many steps there are when you get a new computer. I was like clicking through the, set up your Mac screen. There's like 15 of them, where it's like, not just usage information as one screen, but then like location access. Do you want to use Siri? Do you want some introduction videos? Like it just like they just kept going and going and going, and I was like, anyway, I wasn't saying that justifies us having a longer install period. I just wasn't very pleased with it. But at the same time, I had been looking for models for how other operating systems ask for usage information, and almost always that seems to be one of the prompts when you install new software that's going to be collecting usage information. It usually just gives you a prompt. So somewhere we need to ask that question.
Yeah. By the way, there must be a thing that might be still open. That we had an issue to sort of like make it a 10-second installer or 2-second installer or something like that, or 2-step installer.
Mm-hmm.
I think we still might have that open. But yeah, we can add that in the tech as a checkbox in the first install thing. I think that the main concern was with existing sites when they update to a version that has telemetry and it was meant to be on by default. How we present that to users? Would it be a status message or somewhere? Just
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that existing sites for now. I mean, actually, all sites where it's like you have to go and manually turn on. I think if we just got new sites, that would be a major improvement. But if we wanted to get existing sites, maybe we could just do something as simple as like an update hook that says, "Hey, you don't have telemetry module turned on. It would be great if you did." Like, like go over to the modules page, and it doesn't do anything except for ask people to turn it on. Maybe. Yeah, that's great. Telemetry. That's all telemetry data collection. Like all of the issues that we have, of which I think there's still many, is another one of those things that it's just like, man, that would be so great if we actually did collect the things that are in that meta issue of like other things that we could collect. That it's just we haven't given it priority. But yeah, it'd be nice.
jQuery, we need to do that for jQuery versions because it will give us a sense of how many people have switched to version 3 and then when and if we can get rid of one and make it a contrib module or something.
Yeah, and
so we don't have to support
that because it's so new. I'm not even sure that we have an issue for that particular one.
I think there is.
You go find it.
All right. Let's see. Jen, thanks for joining. Do you have any topics that you wanted to address today? Might not be in a place where she can speak, but Joseph brought something that he wanted to talk about. He wanted to talk about coder upgrade. And we don't really have any other specific topics to cover today. So Joseph, why don't you kind of set the stage for what you're looking at over in the coder upgrade module?
Okay, so I don't really have like a really fleshed out like thing to talk about. But there is a long-standing issue to upgrade coder upgrade to the newest version of Grammar Parser. But in there, Doc Wilmot brought up, he had a comment where he was contemplating if it wouldn't be better to switch to a different library because it's been like 8 years since Grammar Parser was updated. And so I don't know, we just have a lot of issues with coder upgrade, especially using it on newer versions of PHP. And like, it'll just remove symbols from the code if it doesn't know what to do with them. Like one that's been coming up a lot recently is removing the and signs when variables are passed by reference, because that could also be a bitwise and operator. And I guess the module just doesn't know what to do with that. So I don't know. I guess I'm looking for feedback on what people think would be the best solution here. I've looked at PHP parser, which is what the Drupal.org's new API module uses. And it seems far more complicated than grammar parser. So I guess it would be a trade-off, like a more maintained library, but it would be also significantly more complicated for if people wanted to get in and help with maintaining it.
Yeah, I don't have strong opinions about that because I don't know a lot about the underlying library in the first place. Yeah, how does Doc Wilmot feel about it? I think that's probably one of the most important questions.
Let's see. I haven't asked a little bit in Zulip a few days ago. I think he's been busy with other stuff.
Do we have an issue for this?
Yeah, well, here. Oh, paste. There is the existing issue to update it to grammar parser 2.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's started the work to update it, but he was just pondering in there, like, is it really worth the effort to do this if it would be better to just switch to a different library entirely?
And so grammar parser hasn't had an update in 8 years since PHP 7 came out, which is pretty good reason why grammar parser might not be a good thing. This very last issue, it says here, Doc Wilmot, I've gone ahead and upgraded to grammar parser 2.x code. But it's not clear where that happened, like if that was in a...
Oh, that's, there's a branch on the repository called 2.2 or something like that. GP 2.2.
Or class codes, okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
So that, yeah, that's where he made those changes.
Yeah. Well, it looks like, I mean, based on this issue, you know, there doesn't seem to be a separate discussion about switching libraries. And so I think that this is the place to say, you know, hey, let's just go ahead and look at using PHP parser. The Drupal, oh, that's interesting. There's another one called Farberist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I looked at that one too, but it also hasn't had an update in about 5 years.
As opposed to PHP parser, which looks very active last
Right.
week. Yeah. The PHP parser written in PHP. Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. This is interesting that it looks like PHP parser is potentially in flux. I see that the version is the stable version is 4.x, but it worries me that there's a 5.x version and documentation for it. That makes me think that it's like, well, if we upgrade to PHP parser, how long is it going to be before we need to refactor it for 4, and how big is that change?
So the PHP parser 4, PHP parser 5 is going to drop support for PHP 5. So we would be limited to the 4.x branch because if we want to support PHP 5.6. So
yeah, for a contrib module, especially one that's development oriented, I don't think that that's terribly important. Yeah, I found the change log or upgrade instructions.
Yeah, the downside. So we would be able to use something much newer. The downside, though, since they're dropping support for PHP 5, is that like in 2 or 3 years from now, we'll be in the same boat we are now, where we're using a library that's not really being maintained with new PHP versions.
Wait, I'm not following what the problem is.
Because, well, if they drop support for PHP 5, then it's likely that the parser will break PHP 5 compatible code that we're trying to port.
Oh, I see. But it does look like this says that it's still possible to parse PHP 5 code, but you just need to be running a newer version.
Right.
Yeah. So that's good. But I totally see what you're saying, that it's kind of important that we be able to run like upgrade code that was written for PHP 5, because that could be a lot of Drupal modules right now.
Right.
Yeah. But so far it doesn't look like that's an issue. But that's a valid point. Yeah. Well, it's kind of a bummer that that the simpler, easier to use library isn't being updated. But I think that in situations like this, writing our own parser or even maintaining a parser just isn't a very feasible path.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I'm looking at right now. Is like I either rebuild code or upgrade on a new parser, or I implement all the new PHP features into our existing parser.
Right. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. I think that switching the underlying library and getting onto something that is supported with the speed of PHP changes happening, I think that it would benefit us to use a supported library. Not to mention, we could get something that works, maybe, but I think that a library that's being used by lots of other projects or widely used is going to suss out bugs much faster than us maintaining a library that is only used in Coder Upgrade.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my suggestion. Like, this is a situation like that just doing a major refactor of Coder Upgrade is probably the path forward here. I would probably go so far as to say that like this needs to be a major version of Coder Upgrade. So like make a 2.x, 2.0 branch,
Right.
and start that work over there.
Right.
Did you have any other thoughts or questions, Joseph?
No, I was just curious what other people thought about that.
Yeah. That's my opinion. Anything else today?
I reopened the closed issue 6199. That's the one that removes the cohort header.
Oh, yep.
Right. So there was a change record that we updated with it, and the intention was to pull it into the 1.25 branch, but when you merged it, you said that you could not cherry pick it back to 125. So if that was the reversal was not added to 125, then it shouldn't be mentioned in the
change log.
Change record. Yeah. The change record says that introduced. So I'm not sure which way we want to go. Do we want to try to manually remove that in the 125.x branch and actually fix things there as well, or just update the documentation?
No,
we opened that issue just to keep it on our radar, just to fix things.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and update the change record because we don't make new releases of the prior bug fix release except for security releases. So making the change in the 125.x branch, that it would never be released unless there's a security update as well. So I would say let's just update this change record, which is what I'm doing right now. Also, the reason why we couldn't backport it still stands in that we had updates inside of system.install that were only in the 126 branch, and this required an update hook in the 125 branch. And so like the version numbers in system.install were conflicting with each other, and that made cherry picking it not happen or not possible. I'm actually looking at this line and wondering why it needed a system update. Oh, okay. There was a config option for whether or not you wanted block interest cohort header to be present or not. And that the update just removes it. Yeah. So anyway, is that fine?
Yep.
Yep. I think nice spotting there.
And just quickly want to mention, I'm sort of like Stack might need to get some, I'll try to troubleshoot this a little bit further. So I've raised issue 6241 because I was testing the CK Editor 5 contrib module. And then I noticed that we have duplicate entries about things in the status report. And there's things that we could fix in the CK Editor contrib 5 version, like the contrib version. But I thought that it might be proper to just mention, because you can have both versions coexist. And you can have, in theory, text formats that use both versions, right? So it would be nice if we had a single entry in the status report page, for example, where it mentions that that both version 4 and 5 are actually installed and which are in use or not. But when I installed the contrib version, it started complaining that, and it was actually a warning that you have no filter configured with CK Editor, when in fact that wasn't true. 4 was configured in one of them. Anyway, that led me down a path of figuring out that you cannot override existing entries in hook requirements with another hook requirement. And in Drupal, they introduced a hook requirements alter hook, which allows you to actually alter or delete things. So that will help us in this situation, specifically in Core 4 CK Editor 5 things. I started working on it. And then I'm stuck in some errors that I've been getting. I can't get apparently a test module to be enabled or something. But if I keep failing at fixing the tests, I might need someone else to take over. Still think that it's a good idea to have that hook there in general.
Something that you probably are running into, and I'm just guessing here, is that alter hooks, they can only be run on requirements that have there's like the phase parameter that gets passed into hook requirements, and the phase would need to be runtime in order to do an alter hook on it, because the other ones happen before Backdrop is even installed or when visiting update.php, and the module list hasn't actually been included at that point, or can't be included before Backdrop is even installed. And so the only requirements we can alter are the runtime requirements, not the other ones, I think. Or maybe the Drupal issue got into more hairy details about that, but I would say that if you wanted to implement that as a limitation of this, then that would be fine.
Yeah, there's a few hairy points there, like and differences, right? The only test module, like for the sake of testing that we have there, we have the similar changes, very similar changes between Drupal, even the current versions, and our code. But the respective module in our code, which is testing, it's part of the test suite that tests requirements. In Drupal is there only for the sake of proving that if requirements haven't been met, the module can successfully not be enabled, because that's what needs to be done. So if I wanted to add the tests, initially that's what I started. I started adding the tests for the alter hook there, but then the module would not be enabled because of by design. It actually has an inline comment that says make sure that it never gets enabled. So I've pulled all the changes in a separate module, but now I can't figure out why it's not being enabled, or it is being enabled. Maybe I'm just missing something. I'll try. I didn't try hard enough, but my point is though that it actually worked. So before raising this thing, I started playing on my local or how when CK Editor 5 is installed, if I implement a hook requirements alter hook, how I can actually, instead of add another entry in the status page, how I can supplement the existing CK Editor entry with things.
Yeah, I guess that would be one solution. I'm a little bit worried about that because it's like modules altering each other's thing, which for two modules that are both in core, that's probably okay. But a contrib module modifying core one or vice versa, sometimes that just makes making changes complicated because you have to synchronize them, But
Yeah.
I kind of thought that the big issue or the only real problem with the CKEditor 5 requirements hook is that it doesn't say CKEditor 5 in it. It just says no in text formats are using CKEditor just period. But it really just needs to be updated saying CKEditor 5 isn't being used. And then the in-core version, we also need to start specifying CKEditor 4 everywhere. That's the follow-up that we should do in preparation for CKEditor 5. And we could probably get this into the 126 releases, is just like everywhere we say CKEditor, we should start saying CKEditor 4, just to make it clear that we're talking about that specific version. Yeah.
All right, cool. Other than that, I'm looking at the recently commented or updated issues. I can't see, there's many interesting ones, but not anything that is important, or I can't pick anything that necessarily needs to go in the 126.1 release.
I don't think we have an issue for updating the label of CKEditor already, do we?
I haven't gotten that. That would be in the contrib queue, right? Or
no, because I'm talking about in core, like the CKEditor core module should say CKEditor everywhere.
Okay. I thought that you were saying that we should start referring to it as that, but you actually meant change the text references as well. Right.
Yeah. So even the info file, the hook requirements thing, everywhere it should say CKEditor 4 and not 5, or CKEditor 4 and not just an unversioned CKEditor. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. I'm gonna file an issue for that. Okay.
Yeah, and because I was away, is the plan that we consciously, we know that even the extension for a few select friendly projects, support for CKEditor 4 was extended until November. There's going to be a small gap between November and the release, right? But that is the plan, right? It's sort of okay.
Yep. That there's going to be a gap there where core won't have a supported one, but we're encouraging people, if they need that requirement, that they go over to CKEditor 5, which means that, I'm not sure this is feasible timeline-wise, but we need to stabilize and get CKEditor 5 out, a stable release of CKEditor 5 module, hopefully before the November 22nd end of life date.
By the way, I think that remember how there were some upstream issues with classes being removed from HTML tags? I can't remember which classes it was now. This were fixed. We're using, I think it's called 38 point something version of CKEditor 5, and 39 came out so recently. So we need to update that version as well.
Great. Yeah, CKEditor still CKEditor 5 still changing a lot. Still seems like it's not totally baked, but it's a lot better than it had been. we discussed this last week or the week before that the HTML5 generic HTML5 support was merged into the CKEditor project. So in my testing, it does look like amazingly CKEditor 5 now treats HTML identical to the way that CKEditor 4 treated it, as far as like allowing certain attributes and not mangling the HTML just by viewing it. It's not the best at editing it if it's not supported, but I thought that it was going to lock the content, but turns out it just kind of ignores the markup that it doesn't understand. So you can still like edit inside of nested divs and whatnot. Like it'll just, you can still type inside of it. What I did find to be more difficult about it is that CKEditor 4 had the useful little breadcrumb trail to like navigate, your nested elements. And because CKEditor 5 is intended to avoid that kind of nested HTML, if you're inside of like 6 nested divs, for example, and then if you hit the delete key at the beginning of the sentence, it can delete all 6 of the nested divs and just like merge it with the previous paragraph tag or something like that. That's what I've noticed in particular, is that the delete key behavior sometimes can really just mangle your markup. But we got to the point where at least you can view it, and it's not going to mangle it just by viewing it, which I think is the thing we were most worried about.
So is the plan for 127 to move the contrib module into core, and then have that be the default for new installations?
Yep.
Is that the goal? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And then CKEditor, the legacy version 4 will be removed in 2.x backdrop 2.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yep. Same as everything. Just added to the deprecated things. Yeah, we'll need to do some housekeeping on that. Like we'll probably want to start off with a status report warning and then move it towards an error, like over time, to get people off of 4.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned about warnings and errors, the fact that when you, I know that it's reporting it erroneously, but the fact that you haven't configured any text format with the rich text editor shows up as a warning in the status page. Do we still want to keep that? Because I can think of legitimate cases where like people don't want to, or is the thought there that if you didn't want to use it in any text format, why do you have the module enabled in the first place? Is that the thinking?
That's the thinking, that you should just turn off the module if you're not using it. Yeah.
Okay.
Or you should configure a text format to use it. One or the other. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Okay. All right. Well, let's wrap up for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining and for bringing some interesting topics. We haven't been using the forum a whole lot, but I'll put out a little reminder that forum.backdropcms.org, there's a category in there for weekly meetings. If you think of something during the week that you'd like to have discussed, post into that category. We used to have a big long list of every week was like pre-created a post, but myself and Robert and others have just been the first person that has something that they want to add and has started just adding the weekly post, which honestly kind of reduces the noise in the forum anyway, to have posts that aren't just empty. So just putting that back out there. Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody. We'll see everybody next week. Oh, and release tomorrow. So I'll file an issue to start the checklist for the bug fix release. And both today and tomorrow, I will be putting in extra time to look through the RTBC list to see what kinds of things we can get in for the release tomorrow if we've got things that look nice and safe. So, okay. All right. Thanks again.